question. Does it seem to you like everywhere you turn, someone is talking about empathy? I do. In fact, I've started to tell my students who we train to work with people in conflict that we're not interested in empathy. They're kind of confused by that. But why do I say it? One reason is because there's a mostly unacknowledged, uncongratulated, and very unsexy precursor to empathy that I think needs more of our attention. And we're all doing it right now. No, it's not breathing, though breathing is an equally essential and equally unsexy thing. It's actually listening. Yeah, humble listening. It's a kind of a meh topic, right? I think in Portuguese, you may say, "Nhé." Listening doesn't garner news coverage. Back page, front page, doesn't garner news coverage. And it doesn't even arise to the mundane fascinations that we see on social media, where we pay attention and watch people eating or exercising or putting on makeup, trying on clothes, everything. But have you ever heard of anybody watching somebody listen? Me neither. We just don't learn much about listening. We don't think much about listening. We don't develop assessment tools or pass tests to determine if we do it well or if our competency improves over time. I guess we just assume listening happens or it doesn't. And it doesn't appear to matter either way. But listening and breathing have a lot in common because they're actually essential to well-being, and they're not interesting until they're absent, of course. And even then, we only notice the results of their absence: death in the case of breathing, and war in the case of listening. Wars, big and small, that is. So I'd like to elevate listening to a level that's worthy of our attention and concern, because I think it is. So to me, listening is fundamentally a gesture, a leaning in, not something that we do with just our ears, but with our whole beings. We lean into a person or a situation to receive whatever emerges before us. Listening involves being present, for sure, without pretense and without an agenda that makes me want to hear something specific or makes me want to not hear something specific. Unlike listening to a talk, which is often a passive kind of listening, no offense to anyone listening, I'm referring to listening that is active, in comparison to listening to something while cooking or doing something else. When I'm actively listening, I'm absorbing what I'm hearing on multiple levels. So it means I'm tracking what you're saying and what you're not saying, but I'm also tracking your energy and the signals I'm getting about how you feel, as well as what you're saying now compared to what you said earlier. I also interrupt when I don't understand something, and I ask for clarification when I'm confused. In other words, I don't pretend to understand. And I have an overall intention to learn something I didn't know before. When I'm listening, I have the intention to learn something I didn't know before. I also have to trust that what you're saying matters and that it somehow makes perfect sense, even if you can't see that for yourself or if I don't get it at first. I also have to trust that when something doesn't make sense, that we can explore the confusion together so that eventually it will make sense. When I listen to you as if you're doing your best to tell me what is true to you, then my mind and heart actually can be open to the full person that you are, not just what I expect. And as I listen, I notice the ways that you're different from me and the ways that you're similar to me. They begin to merge and illuminate your fundamental decency. And my listening acts like a mirror for you. It allows you to see your own reflection, to hear yourself, and to realize what you think and feel. And often what you're able to share then will go from somewhat scripted to something that's a bit untamed. And what I think is truth speaking, this truth speaking that emerges is beginning to build a bridge between our worlds, because realness is infectious and we both feel that. Through this landscape that we traverse in all of this listening, I may get a window into your world, a glimpse of what you see or what you face or what you encounter as you, something I couldn't see before I listened deeply. I would call this a moment of empathy, of course, but it's usually a moment, a flash of insight, like holding up binoculars into a distant world. That's all it is, a glimpse, but one that requires so much listening. So what I really mean when I say to my students, we're not interested in empathy, is that we're not seeking empathy as a goal, or what sometimes sounds like a badge of open-mindedness, when it's really the dedication to listening that matters so much more. For some reason, the phrase listening a person to life keeps coming to mind, because from what I've witnessed and experienced, that phrase really does describe how people actually become themselves just by being heard, truly heard. To me, that's newsworthy. But I can't end here. Let's be honest. Listening sometimes feels impossible, and often impossible when it matters most. Like the morning I was sitting at the kitchen table with my parents, and my mom blurted out that she didn't want to live anymore. And she was done trying. No part of me wanted to receive those words, nor reflect them back to her in the ways that I've been suggesting. I just didn't want that clarity. Or when my husband of 30 years, a person who I trust immensely, told me I was bullying him. Immediately, I wanted to reject everything he was trying to say, not allow it, not unpack it, not discover the truth in what he wanted me to know. I didn't want to hear it. So what am I actually saying then about listening? Two things. One, it's crucial. Two, we should expect to need help. The listening I described earlier, and often the implicit target of our empathy, is usually a stranger, an other. And frankly, that's where the listening is easiest. It's when we have to listen to the hard stuff from the people who know us best, who we care about the most, the people who we live with. That's where we stumble the most tragically in our listening. But I think we can actually use this to our advantage, this idea that we can't do it alone. Here's what I mean. As I said, my work involves training young people to be conflict facilitators. People like you and me who become able to stand in the midst of disagreement and intervene in small ways that allow the individuals involved to do big things together, like listen deeply when it's hard. Conflict facilitators are kind of like communication referees, trained to pay attention to things that the players cannot. This allows the referees to make game-changing calls in real time. We wouldn't consider having a World Cup without referees, right? Why don't we treat the needs of human relationships with the same level of concern? My dream is that we build an army of conflict facilitators, easily available all around the world when we need them, like first responders in our local communities. Just like first responders, these facilitators would show up when we need them. We wouldn't have to schedule an appointment. They would show up when we need them to help expand our capacity for listening in the moments when it matters most. Like breathing, as we've said, listening is essential. And when we're first string players on the field, we can deploy communication referees to help us listen each other to life. At the moment, my dream may sound impractical, but look around. Humans erect skyscrapers, fly each other across oceans, make electronic connections wirelessly, send cameras into space that send photos back to us to show us things no human eyes have ever witnessed. I think we can train and deploy conflict facilitators where we need them. But do we believe in the capacity of listening to bring us to life and to stop wars between us? I do. So I think we just have to decide that we prefer listening to all of those wars, big and small, that happen when we don't listen. Thanks for listening.